Alrighty, it is 4 o'clock and we are getting ready to get started here. This is the Locksmith Live cast. I didn't have as much time as I normally have to do promotion for this type of stuff, so it kind of is what it is here. All right, we're going to go into present mode. We're going to go into screen share. And which one is that one? Let's just go to entire screen. I'm going to share this here, and then we're going to go into PowerPoint mode. Hopefully you guys can see the screen. Whoop. All right, so we need to put all these tools to good. Okay, so I don't know if sound is coming through or not. I have no feedback. Yeah, we're just going for it. And put them to work. So we have identified that we have a Schlage SC keyway that is confirmed by the SC stamp on the key, and that key slides right in. So we have a Schlage SC 6-pin. Again, we're going to have to count the pins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6-pin key. This is all very important information because like this one here, this is a 5-pin key. Okay. There's going to be some differences between rekeying this to a 6-pin key or a 5-pin key if you don't know what you're looking for. Okay, so we're going to go over a successful rekey, and then we'll go over some of the problems that can arise from a rekey like this. So I'm going to take my flat small screwdriver and we're going to just barely press on this detent right here. Okay. That little guy right there. And he's got a spring behind him. Okay. So he's springy. So when I push him down like that, see how he's out of the way? This cap can then come off just like that. And then now we're going to start naming the parts of the lock. We've got a cap screw here. Okay, so nice close-up version of the cap screw. We've got our tailpiece. Okay, drive cam, tailpiece. There's some different terminologies running around. Then we have the detent right here. And then I always give this a couple taps, always on your pinning mat. Oh, and one other thing you'll need is a cool pinning mat, okay? Pinning mat is going to be used every single day, and shout out to Lockjaw Manufacturing. Chris over there makes the coolest, absolute most bad pinning mats on the planet. So just wanted to throw that out there. So now we've got our detent spring. I'm going to just show what that detent looks like. And here's where pinning tweezers come into play and start looking like they could help. Okay, so here we go. We've got our detent. Notice it only has a point on one side. Okay, some of them have points on both sides, not all of them. And we have our detent spring. Now this is very different from a key spring because look at the size and diameter. Okay, so I'm going to show this is the detent spring. And this is why you want to hover above the mat and only have things right above the mat. Okay. Things will fall down. So there's our detent spring. And you can see how a detent spring looks absolutely nothing like a regular pin spring here. Okay. Very, very different. So that goes over here. Now we have all of the holding materials off of the lock cylinder. It is ready to come disassembled in the correct order. So now we use the correct key, and that's a key factor. You need to use the correct key, and you need to rotate it 90 degrees. And I'll do that one more time. I want you to see up close, nice and personal here. Okay. You can see we're going to meet the shear line, and then we're going to rotate over 90 degrees. Okay. Now, the key to this is making sure that you have a nice smooth transition, because remember, we always have these top pins up here, and they are under spring tension. They want out. Okay, they want out bad. And our follower is the only thing that's going to keep those in. Now, if you turn the follower this way, what's going to happen to all the pins? They're going to jump out through this gap. So we have to make sure that we bridge the gap and that we have a solid connection right here, even when we're in the 90-degree position. Where does that get a little challenging? Well, if we were to take a look at this mortise cylinder right here, and we were to stick our key in and rotate it 90 degrees, and we were to put this up against there, there would be a gap. And the springs and pins would fall in between the gap, and you would have an exploded cylinder. You'd have to rebuild that. We're not going to allow that to happen today. So I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that there are no gaps in this area right here. I have a full flat contact with the springs that are coming down from the Bible. And we're just going to push. Now here's the ticket on this. Push, never pull. Okay. I am pushing with this follower. I am never pulling with the cylinder or the key. As soon as you pull, you will create a gap. And when you create a gap, you let the springs and the pins fly down in between the two. Let me just give you one quick example of this, okay? Watch this here. Now, if I pull this out and I create a gap, what is going to happen? Okay, that pin is going to come shooting out of there at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and the spring and everything are going to go everywhere. That is not what you want to have happen. We want to make sure that the spring stays in its home, and sometimes they fall out on the floor like that. Luckily, we've got another one right here ready to go, and this is part of cylinder rebuilding, which you'll have to understand the concept of too. So I'm going to just slide this pin back in. This is a common procedure that happens all the time. You're going to need to know how to rebuild that cylinder and re-put that pin back in place. I'm going to show that one more time just so we can make sure that everybody understands the concept here. This is coming down here. The pin comes down like so. He would explode into the oblivion. Luckily, we have a hold of him, and I'm going to put him right back where he belongs, right back up in there. Okay, now everything is looking really good with this rekey. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rekey this to another 6-pin key. This is an SC4 pre-cut key that I have. And you'll notice when I put this key in here, this pin is too low. These ones seem like they're doing fairly well. This pin and this pin are too high. Okay, so I'm verifying that I'm actually rekeying this to a different key, because with all of the pre-cut keys out there in the world, you could actually accidentally, randomly end up with the same key that you either got as a pre-cut or you chose to cut as the same customer's key. It has happened. Trust me, it's something that can happen. It doesn't happen often. It's a 1,000,000 to 1 chance, but it can and will happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rekey this lock by pulling the key out. All right, so I'm going to pull the old key out. You can watch all those pins jump around. It's kind of fun to do. Okay, so the old key comes out, my new key comes in. Okay, or I'm sorry, that was the old key. We're going to actually switch this one in. And if there are pins in there that are exactly the same and you're not fudging the numbers just a little bit, if they are identical cuts, then just go ahead and leave them in there. Okay, there's nothing that says that you have to replace every single pin. If it's the exact same pin and the exact same length that you're going to be putting back into it, that would not make a whole lot of sense. So I'm going to leave those two right there. I'm going to run my decoder. Okay, we're going to do, let's see here, 1, 1, 7, 3, 3, 9. Okay, so I've got my code, and let's see here. Write this down. We'll go right here, and then we're just going to add a 9 to it. So 1, 1, 7, 3, 3, and 9 is the last cut. Okay. Good to have a pen with you, or a pencil, or something to write something down with. So now I'm going to take this. I'm going to put this in here. Then we're going to see that we have these that are already the same. I'm going to throw a 9 pin right here in this location. Make sure it passes the sight test. It needs to look flat and flush. If it doesn't, if you see what you saw before with it sticking up just a little bit or down just a little bit, that is not going to work later. It is going to cause you heartache and problems. Trust me on this. Okay, I've done this long enough. It's not worth it trying to make a pin fit. So let's see where we're at with a 0. I'm also going to go to 1. A 1 cut is going to be a 180. 180, and that's what you're doing is we're picking through thousandths on this. 160, 180T, 195. There it is right here. And you could use your pinning tweezers, you can use your fingers, you can use whatever you want to use here. Okay. So now we have successfully rekeyed this lock with all of the correct pins. Okay, and I'll just pull this back out. Again, verify that the old key is not going to work. This one is too high and these two are too short. It will not turn over. You will not meet the shear line. Okay, I promise you. Just not going to happen. Put our correct key back in, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure it's turned at 90 degrees. Make sure, again, that I've got no space in this area here. Okay, you don't want to dump the pins out, so I kind of hold them flat, and then I hold the Bible and the lock housing this way and insert the plug like so. That's the first good sign, is that it slid in. If it doesn't slide in, one of your pins is too tall. Now, the other catch that we can have is if one of our pins is too low, it'll get caught up in the next process. If we did everything correctly, I should be able to turn the pins up. You can actually watch them snap into place. And now the spring is driving pressure down, meaning if any of the pins were too low, it would have a problem now. But we have no problem. Everything works absolutely perfect, just the way we want it to. Okay, so now we have successfully rekeyed this lock. Here's where things get interesting. Because the pins are down in these cuts like this, they're actually trapping the key inside the lock. Okay, so that's why right now in this position, we cannot pull the key out. So here's the tricky part, and this is where most people explode the cylinder and have all of their problems. You need to use a pinching motion like so. You need to hold the plug stationary. You need to hold the plug stationary while you pinch gently and pluck the key out. Now watch as this happens, okay? So there's my pinching motion. Now that we are in this state and the shear line has been broken, we are now good to go. This lock cannot fly apart now. You can pull the key out and nothing will happen, okay? If you don't do that, if you don't pay attention, then you can easily, very easily, just and then all of the springs and the pins come out and everything bad happens. So we need to be in that vertical 90-degree direction, okay? Just lined up the top of the key with the Bible of the lock. Pinch, use that little pinching motion where you're holding the plug stationary, pulling the key out gently, and now we can begin to rebuild this cylinder. Now I'm going to start off right here with the detent spring that's going back in. Okay, he's going to go right back into his home right there. I'm just trying to grab a couple photos of this as we go. Okay, so he's going to go right back in there. Then our detent is going to go back in with the point pointing up. Okay, want to make sure that the point is pointing up. Now, that should just stay in there. It could spring out. If you give it any kind of flick, then it springs out and it's pretty much gone. All right, now we're going to come to the cap screw. Now, I cannot use my cap screw tool because this is a different size and different pattern. It only works on this one over here. So what we're going to have to do is the reverse process of pushing the detent down, and I try and go backwards a little bit with that cap screw first, and then see if it'll start threading on. Okay, you don't want to cross thread it. It's brass on brass. This would be very easy to cross thread. Okay, so then we hold this here, and now you can see, I can get it a little bit closer now that we've got more room, and right there. You're pushing it down and driving the cap screw down. One thing I did forget to tell you is to put the tailpiece back in, and to put it back in the way that you found it. Now, most key and knob cylinders will go this way with this in line with the Bible. Most key and lever cylinders will go the other way. Okay, and that's not a universal rule. It's just a kind of, most of the time, that's something that you should be keeping in mind. Okay, so it's almost kind of good that you could see how to do that. Now, one other way to get this started is to actually just put the flat spot of the cap screw and the tailpiece over that spring, and then it gets you started, and now you can slide it down in there so it kind of pushed him out of the way. Okay, so here we've got our detent, everything all lined back up in there. And now my favorite method for this portion is to tighten it all the way down, all the way tight. Okay, finger tight as you can get it with your fingers, and then back it off. One click. And I'm going to show you how this clicks up here. You see how he's tucked underneath there? Okay. I'm going to back him off one click. Watch him pop up. Click. Now the cap screw cannot turn, but it doesn't need to be tight either, and it allows the key to go in. Okay. That is the part that we have all completely done now. The last portion of this is the key also needs to be able to come out. If you get to this point and the key slid in and it doesn't want to come out, one of two things has happened. You've either rotated the key slightly and you're not perpendicular with the Bible of the lock, or the other very common thing, and probably more common thing that has happened, is your cap screw is far too loose. So now you see how I've got some space here, and this can wiggle and wobble and move around, and see how it's moving the pins as I do that? This is very, very bad. Okay, we do not want to see stuff like this happening here. Okay, so what happens when I stick the key in? I can't get it back out. Okay, it will not come out because the pins are being trapped and trapping the key in place, because the pins are in the key cuts and it's rubbing against the cylinder and not allowing it to come out. Can we get this key out? Yes, we can. We do that pinch thing that we did before. The key will come out. I can now set the cylinder down. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten all the way and back off my one click. Now, everything works extremely smooth. If it feels tight, like when you originally put the original key in and turned it, it should feel about the same. If it feels too tight, then you simply have an over-tightened cap screw. So let me show you what that looks like, okay? So I can just feel there's extra resistance here, and it's crunchy, okay? This one is a too tight. This is not pushing it in and backing it off that one turn that it needs to have some breathing room to actually be able to function correctly and smoothly like shown here. So there it is, start to finish, total and complete, how to rekey a commercial grade key in knob or key in lever cylinder, along with the tools required to go ahead and do so. For more information, please check out the website below and check out for all of the tools and products that were shown here today. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Check out wayneslockshop.com.
Okay, so that is how to rekey the cylinder.
Okay, so we're going to go through those same steps, and I'm going to...
and that is rekeying your cylinder start to finish with no problems. If we have problems, this second video is going to address what happens when the driver pins and driver springs come out of the housing. What happens when you have other variables in place? How do we rebuild that cylinder? And what does it look like when we're reassembling that cylinder here? So that's what this is going to go over. And again, the whole point, I know there's a lot of experienced locksmiths that could be watching here, and that's good. I like that. In fact, I really embrace that, and I want to make sure that there's good quality people here. But this is really designed for the shop owner who needs help training employees. Why? Because how many times as shop owners are we stuck trying to train an employee over and over and over again? It's very difficult to get employees, very difficult to get employees to stay. It's just tough for a lot of the shop owners out there, and a lot of them just throw their arms up in the air and they say, hey, I'm not going to do it. You know, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm tired of training people, and I don't want to do it anymore. So these video series will help your shop owners and you as a shop owner or a business owner help train those employees and take some of that frustration off of you. Send them home with a lock cylinder and a rekey kit and a pin kit and have them watch this video. That is the entire point of everything that we're doing here. My philosophy was I wanted to make a video and an education program that was at or above the highest level and standards so that everyone could embrace that learning style and be comfortable allowing their employees to utilize it. Let me give you an example. The average shop owner, at least I know, I would never send any of my techs to YouTube to go learn how to be a locksmith. Why? Because there's 80% poor information and possibly, 20% decent information, and even less, maybe only 1 or 2% actual high quality information. You don't know if the person that you are learning from has been a professional locksmith for 20 years, 20 months, or 20 minutes. I can tell you that I have a decade plus in the game, and I can tell you that this is the first time that we're getting this up close, this personal 4K video shot up close on cutaway cylinders. This is learning at a new level.
Go ahead and rename all of the parts and pieces as we move along. I'm just going to use these pinning tweezers here because it's nice and convenient. I'm going to actually see if we can expand-o-matic on there. So I'm going to push this detent in. I'm going to rekey this lock, do all the proper procedures and everything. I'm going to start over here. Put my cap screw, tailpiece, detent spring in place. And then, so you can see all those pieces right over here, cap screw, tailpiece, detent spring. I'm going to insert the 6-pin SC4 key back in, and I'm going to utilize a follower to follow this out. Now let's see what happens when this accidentally explodes. And here's going to be the number one problem you're going to run into. The other video that I did, I expressed the absolute and utter must do that you must push, meaning I am pushing with the follower. I am not pulling. However, most of the time, the first time somebody rekeys a lock, they tend to try and push, and let's watch what happens, okay? We're going to watch this epic destruction in maybe even slow motion here. I'm going to try and get this to blow up. So I'm going to do it extra slow just in case. Boom, pin explodes. Pin explodes. Pin explodes. Pin.
Slow motion. Boom.
And now we have a giant mess. As a locksmith, you will get cylinders handed to you that are in this condition. There may or may not be springs left in there. There may or may not be springs left in the Bible. They may be on the ground. All kinds of bad things happen. And then we usually dump those too. So how do we put Humpty Dumpty back together again? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to start off with what we know. Okay, so there's a lot of pins out on the table right here. And when there's a lot of pins out on the table, what we need to do is come up with a plan to rebuild one thing first. So the first thing that we're going to do is, I would recommend building this cylinder from each side. Now, this is where pinning tweezers are an absolute mandatory must. It is extremely difficult to do this. I have done it without pinning tweezers, but it is extremely difficult to go ahead and try and do so. So what we're going to do is I'm going to build this cylinder from halfway each way. And that means that I'm going to come in and I'm going to put my follower here, and then we're going to rebuild from these 3 chambers out. And then I'm going to push the follower all the way through, and we're going to rebuild from these chambers all the way out. The reason I'm doing that is so I'm not starting and reaching all the way in the back of the lock here. Okay, I don't want to have to reach my tweezers all the way back here and try and manipulate the follower to be able to trap the pins to rebuild this cylinder. This is what we call an exploded cylinder, by the way. This is what I refer to as an exploded cylinder. All right, so we got a little bit better lighting, and now we're going to start to rebuild this cylinder. So I've got my pinning tweezers. I already got a couple springs here, so this is going to actually be easier to rebuild, in my opinion, this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that we do not capture the spring in this equation. So I'm kind of looping and pushing it down, and you can see right here that we do not have the spring in play. Okay, so we'll get real up close and personal for this. And then the next one, again, we do not have the spring in play. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is I'm going to need to grab a top pin. Now, the top pins are going to be identified as not having a point. Okay, so this one has a point. That is a bottom pin. This one is obviously a top pin because it has 2 flat sides. No point on there whatsoever. Okay. So what we want to do is we've got to, and I'm going to try and show this as best I can. I would normally be looking through the cylinder, okay? But that's going to be difficult to get on camera, so that's why we're using the cutaway. So I'm actually going to tuck this right up in here, and you can see how I'm moving that spring. So now I've got a lot of things going. I've got sideways pressure. I'm pushing in and down on the tweezers, okay? And I specifically have this pin grabbed just like this so that the pin can go into the chamber and I can have enough meat to let go of it and pinch it in place. So let's watch this happen all at once here. So I'm going to find the hole. I'm going to insert the pin, and then I'm going to trap it with side pressure. So now you can see I can actually trap that pin right where he needs to be. Okay, he's right in there. Now I'm going to push him down past the follower. Okay, I'm going to push him in, push him down, push it just like that. It's very hard to do this on camera. Okay, I'm going to push it down, and then I'm going to move the follower past it. Do you see how the follower is now past where the pin is? That hopefully makes some kind of sense here. Get this to point it out a little better. Okay, so right there, our pin is now past that. So I'm going to continue to work my way out. Now the next one, we're going to actually have to set a spring. If you don't have the spring, or you can't find the spring that came out of your lock, this is where you go to your pin kit and you grab another spring. So I'm going to push this all the way through, just like this. And I'm going to continue to build the cylinder out. Okay, so now we have our one pin in the center and spring completely built. I'm now coming to the other side. This is very difficult to do on camera. Okay, now you get to watch me do it again. All right, so I'm going to grab it. I'll go just a little bit faster. We are. Okay, put him in place. Now I've got my extra spring. I'm going to set that into place. Can you see? Hopefully we can see nice and clear. But that's going right into that hole. Okay, right like so. That's a beautiful shot. Let me see if I can get a picture of that. Okay. So now we've got our spring. Okay, so I'm going to switch followers. That other one was not working the way that I wanted it to. So I've got an all solid white one. The problem with the master pin follower is that every time it gets rotated, the pin would keep falling through here. So that's not going to work out very well. Get a solid follower here. And I'm going to go ahead and grab this, rebuild this for the third time. Put that one right back in there. Okay, done. Good. Okay. Push him down, move it past. Grab the next spring, put him in, push him down. Now I'm going to grab another top pin. If you do not have a top pin, you cannot find a top pin, you would look in your pinning kit, and your pinning kit would tell you what a top pin needs to be. For Schlage, depths between 0 and 5 are going to take a 237 thousandths top pin. Depths between 5 and 8 are going to take a 200 top pin, and depths between 8 and 9 are going to take a 165 thousandths top pin, according to the lab pin kit that I'm staring at. Here, now you can see we can do that again. You see how I'm pinching the pin in place. I intentionally grab him so I have extra meat to work with, and then collapse the spring and hold it in place. Then we push down while I'm pushing on the follower, and now we have 2 set pins. Okay, now we've got 2 right here and right here. Perfect. Now we're going to go for the last one. Again, I'm going to grab another top pin, and this one should be very easy for you to see. Very easy. Okay, Just set it right in place. You can see that from all angles. And then I'm just gonna push and down. Okay. Now we've got to do the other sides. I could turn this follower around. That would probably be the easiest way to go, or I could just do it with this side. Either way is going to work. I'm just going to go ahead and go for it. So again, now notice how I'm starting in the middle and working my way out. That way I'm not reaching all the way across inside the lock cylinder. Okay, so grab another top pin. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to grab a spring first. Spring goes in. Pin goes in. Perfect. Next one. Back it up just a little bit. Spring goes in. Pin goes in. And this is where having that notch cut out on the pinning tweezers really comes into play. And I'll show you why. Because if we don't have that little notch cut in there, when you're trying to set these pins, they tend to move and roll and buckle, and they're very not nice to work with. Now, I did mention that I had to do this without pinning tweezers once, and people are probably asking how on earth that was possible. Well, I'll show you. I took a little flat blade screwdriver just like this, and watch this. I'll do it without pinning tweezers here. Go ahead and insert the spring. Then I would get my pin. Okay, I would take my top pin and I would set him right here. I would actually angle in, almost push past it just a little bit, flush, so I can tuck him in, past it, bring. And voila, now we have in place, and you can set a pin without pinning tweezers, but it is much more time consuming. Okay, so now we have the cylinder completely rebuilt. All of the springs and all of the top pins are in their proper location. Now we've got the key pins. This should be fairly easy. You should be able to basically sight read them. And so what I would do is set my key up like so. I would then get my pins. I would say that one's the deepest. That one's mid-shallow, mid-shallow, shortest, shortest, and longest. Okay, so I arrange my pins based off how they're going to coordinate in the key, and let's see if I was accurate or not. Take our pins, put it right directly back into the cylinder. That one looks good. We're on the right track. We're on the right track. Great way to tell whether they're flush or not. Run the tweezers across. Beautiful. Beautiful. And beautiful. Okay, so now everything looks very nice and fits extremely well. Then we take this, run it back into our cylinder, and what do you know? Everything works good. Click, click. Awesome job. We have just rebuilt this cylinder from exploded back to fully functional in no time at all. Took a little bit of time to show and go through the motions. The camera aspect adds a ludicrous amount of difficulty to it because I'm actually working through my sight, not through the camera, because I can't see exactly what's going on through there. All right. So then we take this cap screw, put the cap screw back on. Tighten, loosen up one turn, key, voila. Beautiful. Okay, all day long, totally and completely from exploded to rebuilt in no time flat. Thanks for watching. For more information, check out the website below. As always.
All righty.
Okay.
Pause that. So that is it. You've got your videos for rekeying and what happens when it all comes apart. Just putting this out there, we have our limited lifetime offer for $285 for lifetime membership for wayneslockshop.com. If you are interested, go ahead and check it out here. Wayne's Lock Shop, locksmith training videos, the largest collection of online locksmith training videos dedicated to the further education of the locksmith industry and professionals. This is where I put all the information that I can't put out online. Servicing a lock, rekeying a lock, things like this. We've already got a key to the lock. I'm not giving bypass information out to the public, unfortunately. That's just, I'm not willing to do so. Or fortunately, depending on how you look at the matter. But as far as servicing and rebuilding what you have or reassembling what you have, that's kind of what we're going on here. Here's a QR code. You can fill out an application if you want to see the good stuff, the really, really, the bypass stuff, how to pick locks, open safes, do all kinds of fun stuff, tubular locks. All the other stuff that I have is in wayneslockshop.com. I'm going to go ahead and turn this down, and we're going to come back over to here, and we're going to stop screen share. So thank you, everyone, for watching. It's fun when you forget your follower. Okay, so that is fun. That's a good point, Keith. I have forgotten my follower before. Maybe I'll do a video on that or not. I'm not sure. But what did I do to solve that problem? Well, when you forget a follower, you can always find something like a 1/2-inch socket or a little piece of pipe or a 1/2-inch doweling piece of wood plug. If you ever carry GMS cylinders, that white little follower that I had comes with almost every single GMS cylinder that you will get. 1/2-inch socket, anything 1/2-inch will work. I have actually even, the one time I did that, I set up a new service vehicle and I went out to a location and I did not bring my follower and I didn't bring my pin kit. I didn't bring anything. So how did I rekey that lock? Well, I used the pins that were currently inside the lock. The only thing I had was a blue punch or a punch machine. So I was able to take the existing cuts. So like on that one, it was like 117339, and I would just move those around. So it's all the same exact pins, just in different locations. So when the original key was not inserted, it would no longer work. So that's how I got around that. I was able to punch a key out, use the existing pins in the lock and just move them around. And what did I use for a follower? I used a business card. I actually rolled, it was just stiff enough. I rolled it up so that it would go in and it would hold and follow and hold all the driver pins and driver springs up in the top, and then just move the pins around, cut my new key, put it to the new cuts. Voila, it actually worked. Rekeyed a lock with no pin kit and no follower. It can be done. I don't recommend it, but it can be done in a pinch. Yep, take pins apart. Great, Wayne. Thank you. Awesome. Wi-Fi. Okay. Everything you saw filmed today was filmed in 4K. I don't know if it came across in 4K here, but the 4K videos are going to be available at wayneslockshop.com. So go over there and take a video. We are offering that lifetime membership at $285. And I hope this new platform is working for you. I apologize that it did not work with the sound last time. However, we're modifying. We're constantly always improving. And so this is the new platform. It's more HD, it's higher quality. It allows me more control and more features for guests. And it's on a better platform that allows me to stream to both YouTube and Facebook at the same time. So we are sticking with the latest and greatest in technology. We're never going to get complacent and just stay with the same thing. We're always going to be seeking that new thing, that next level, and that way that I can get the information to you in the clearest, cleanest, most professional way possible. Thank you all for joining me. We'll see you next week. Next week, we'll probably continue on this beginner series, and we're going to build on it. What happens if you need to rekey a lock that doesn't have a key? What happens if we have to shim a lock? Now, again, this is public information because there's so many videos out there. And in order to shim a lock open, even if you don't have a key, you had to have gotten in there in the first place. The door had to either be unlocked, were able to take it apart, or something happened to where you had access to it in the first place. So we'll go over how to shim pick a lock. We'll use the shim with the clear cutaway so you can actually see how it shims in between the two. And we'll go over shimming techniques for spool pins that Schlage is really famous for. If you're not familiar with how to shim one of those spool pins, it can wrinkle up your shim, ruin your shim, and just give you a bad day. We also might go over some 5-pin, 6-pin tricks. One of them is if you've got a 5-pin key and you need a 6-pin, or wait a minute, if you've got a 6-pin cylinder that's chambered with all 6 pins, you either have 2 choices. You got to drop 1 pin and spring, or you can actually use my little hack where I put a number 9 pin that just so happens to ride up on the tip of that 5-pin key just perfectly, and you keep all 6 pins, all 6 springs, maintain higher security for that lock, and still utilize the entire system. You can work it on a 5 or 6-pin key blank. So lots of cool stuff. Join us next week, every Monday, 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining me, and have a great day.